Hi, and welcome to another episode of Order Up with Chef Eric. Every month, the Herald Standard gets together with Executive Chef Eric Durst from the Firehouse Restaurant, and he takes us through a few of his own creative recipes that you can try at home, all made with fresh ingredients from Peachin's grocery store. Today, we're talking about creative fall-themed side dishes made with fresh vegetables. All right, Eric, so thanks for meeting with us again today.
No problem.
And you can go ahead and get us started with the first recipe.
The first one we're going to do, it's a little outside the box. Not your typical side dish, but it is a little different and creative. Goes really good with some fall items. I've ran them with duck specials before. I've ran them with lamb specials before. So it's a little different, but very, very delicious. We're going to start with some red Danjou pears and a Granny Smith apple. What we're going to do is we're just going to take these off. We're just going to small dice them. Now for this recipe, we're actually using some petite pie shells. They're personal, so each of your guests would get one. There are variations for it. If you can't find the petite shells, you could just do something with a 9-inch pie shell or a 10-inch, which is your typical baking pie shell. You can get them in the freezer section. Or if you're baking your own dough at home, you're baking your own pies, you have some leftover dough, you could always roll out your own. That's fine too. So we're just small dicing these up. Once we get them all together, just mix them in with the bowl.
So just cut right around the core.
Basically, I just cut right around the core. You want to be sure not to get any of that in there. Not only is it tough, but it can also become a little bit bitter. And depending on, we're doing recipes here for, say, a family of 4, but I always do a couple extra. Usually it's not going to be too much of a problem to get rid of them. Now the pear, you can get these ahead a little bit of time. I do recommend, if you are going to cut the fruit ahead of time, when you toss them with a little bit of lemon juice. It'll keep them from turning brown on you, the acid in the lemons. So we have those ready. Put those into the bowl. Okay, we have that, and then we have a little bit of caramelized onions. Basically just a julienne onion. You can put in whatever kind you like. I use some Vidalias, I use some Spanish, I use some red onion. You can use just one, or you can do the mix, whatever you like. Put a little bit of that juice in there for some flavor. And then I'll take about half to mix in, because I always like to finish with some of the ingredients right on top.
Now, can you buy caramelized onions just pre-caramelized?
I've never seen them done. I've never seen them bought. You could substitute, say, an onion jam. There are onion jams out there. You could substitute something like that, but there's nothing like making them yourself.
Right.
Take about 3 tablespoons of blue cheese, crumbled blue cheese. Mix that in with it. And then we just give that a toss. A little bit of salt and pepper. I know some people think when they see salt and pepper going on fruit, they're like, ugh. But it actually does bring out a lot of the fruit flavors. Salt accentuates any flavors, really, no matter what you're putting it on.
Yeah, I'm already getting the sweet, savory smell come out of there. Nice.
So you can go ahead and give me a hand with these.
All right, sure thing.
Just bring these shells over there. And you just want to put a couple, 4 or 5, I'd say, spoonfuls into each one.
All right.
Just below, say, the top of it. While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and mix up the custard for the recipe. Basic custard recipe is 8 eggs to a quart of heavy cream. We're only going to use about half of that, so we're going to go with the 4 eggs.
Why are we halving it?
Yes,
What's the reason?
Standard, that's just how I've always remembered a standard custard recipe, but for the size of this recipe, you're only going to need about half a batch.
Right, gotcha.
So we're just going to half it. About 3 cups of sour cream. I'm sorry, not heavy cream, not sour cream, heavy cream. And let me grab this whisk. And just basically mixing this together. You'll see it'll thicken up a little bit from the eggs. You're not trying to aerate it like whipped cream or anything like that. You just want to get it blended. That looks pretty good right there.
All right.
And that was even pretty close on the portions. So we'll just lay them out a little bit. You don't want to pack them too tight because you want the custard to run down in between them.
Okay.
So
fill in the gap.
yeah, if you get them too wedged in there, what'll happen is the custard won't be able to get down in between them, and they'll tend to fall apart on you because the custard's actually what holds it together. And then I just give a little bit more topping of the caramelized onion on top, and a little bit of the blue cheese crumble. It's nice to have the bigger chunks in there, so when after they bake and you bite into them hot, you know, you have a nice creamy big chunk of blue cheese in there.
So they do melt, but
yes,
they don't
they
melt.
will melt. Blue cheese, feta cheese, stuff like that are a little bit lower on moisture content, so it's not going to get that creaminess of, say, mozzarella and stuff like that. But it will get creamy. It will get hot. It won't be hard like it say it is now when it's cold. But when you bite into it, it will be that nice soft creaminess, right? And then basically we're just going to pour a little bit of custard into each one. You don't want them overflowing. Our pan here is a little crooked. You don't need them overflowing because once you do start baking them off, the custard is going to expand. So it is actually going to grow up over the topping as it bakes. So I go just below the top of the rim of the cup. Just kind of want to even them up there. Just going to kind of pop them in the oven about 25 to 30 minutes, just till they get golden brown. The way I test them too is there's a couple ways to do it. You can give them the jiggle test. If it's still a little play when you shake them, it's kind of wobbly like Jello, they're not quite done. They should be firm, they should barely move. Or you can do the toothpick test where if you put it in there, you draw it back and it's clean, it's baked. Kind of same, a lot of people do it with cupcakes. They test cupcakes and cakes the same way.
Right.
So we'll go ahead and toss those in the oven and we'll check them out later.
Okay. For our next creation, Chef Eric is going to guide us through stuffed mushroom caps with fresh vegetables and pesto sauce. All right, Chef, take it away.
Okay. For this one, again, another very simple recipe. We have some beautiful jumbo stuffing mushrooms in. It's a Pennsylvania button mushroom. Basically, all we did was we cleaned them up a little bit, pulled the center stalks out of them. So, of course, that's where our stuffing is going to go. Again, we did 8 here. This is a recipe for a family of 4, but they're going to shrink up a little bit because mushrooms retain a lot of water. So as they bake, they're going to lose a lot of moisture. They're going to shrink up a tad, not a ton, but more than likely somebody's going to want more than one. So this is for 2 per person.
Okay.
So basically, very simple recipe. You can adjust the vegetables that you want to do in these. It's no problem. We have some vegetables here that don't contain a lot of moisture because the mushrooms already do. So you got to be really careful about using really wet vegetables to stuff these. Now the breadcrumbs will help absorb some of that, but if you got moisture upon moisture upon moisture, they're going to get really soggy on you and they're not going to bake up nice. So basically we did a red and green pepper mix with zucchini, cauliflower, some onion, and some broccoli. There's cauliflower in there as well, I believe. So we're going to start out, we're just going to puree some of this up. We're going to pulsate it in a Roku food processor. If you don't have one of these available, you can chop them by hand. You just got to, it's going to take a little bit of work because you want to get them fairly small enough to where you can get them to bind, you know, with the breadcrumbs and the eggs and stuff. So just a few pulses. Basically, once you see it, it's going to come out kind of looking like almost maybe a thick salsa or a pico de gallo, maybe like a relish, about that size.
Mm-hmm. This could also be like a fridge cleaning out day.
Absolutely,
just throw in whatever you've got.
Anything you have, you want to get in there, get it mixed. That would be no problem at all. So we're just going to we have our 8 caps, and they look like they're a pretty good size. Mm-hmm. So I'd say the vegetable mixture, I'd say, you're probably looking at about 4 cups. And we're going to put in, we have some panko crumbs here. You could use fresh ground breadcrumbs that you have in the closet, a Delilo brand or a store-bought brand, whatever it may be. I prefer the panko to it because The finer that they're ground, the more moisture they absorb. They almost become like sand. So the panko doesn't retain as much of the oil or the water, so they tend to hold up a little bit better, where the ground, really fine ground stuff, it can make it kind of a mushy texture. So I prefer the panko. We're just going to do a little bit of clarified butter. You could just use some melted butter, it's no problem. Just puts a little fat content in there, keep them from drying out, and it's also really good flavor.
Now, can you buy clarified butter?
I've never seen it. I think it's some of the specialty markets, maybe Farmer's Market or Whole Foods Market, some of those specialty ones, you could probably buy it. But basically, take a couple sticks of butter, throw it into a pan,
And you got it.
simmer it, it'll separate. Some of the milk fat will rise to the top. We just skim that off, and then you're just left with the yellow, and that's how you get clarified butter.
All right.
And then we're going to take 1 egg. The egg will act as the binder. Just keep everything together, keep it from falling apart on you. Get that started. And we're going to put a little Parmesan cheese. Again, too, as the cheese starts to melt, it'll help bind it up as well. Now, it might feel a little wet. You might think it's a little too wet, but you don't want it where there's moisture running off of it. But you do want it wet enough where you can, if you would squeeze it in your hand, you could see it's going to bind together and hold together for you.
Okay.
A little bit of salt and pepper. Put it on there like that. See if it looks like it's going to pack. Doesn't look too bad. We'll just add a little bit more butter. 1 egg is plenty as far as binding. You could add another egg, but it could make it too wet, and it's really a little bit extra fat and cholesterol that you really don't need in there. Trying to keep them somewhat healthy, being vegetables as opposed to crab meat or sausage or something.
Yeah, all these dishes are vegetarian friendly.
Yes.
So if you're having a dinner party with some non-meat eaters.
Depending on how strict they are, naturally, true vegans, a lot of them don't eat cheese or eggs because technically they are meat products. All right, so then another way you can test your consistency is to just go ahead and try one. So I go ahead and I just put one in there. And it looks like it's holding up pretty good.
So you you kind of overflow it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You can put as much or as little as you like. Sure, go ahead and you can build them. I go ahead and you can put as much in there. You can kind of heap them depending on how you're scooping them. If you want to put gloves on, if you want to do them with your hands, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, as much as you want to get in there. And then after you get those all stuffed, they'll go in roughly, again, depending on your oven at home, 350, 400 degrees, not very long, 10, 12 minutes. Some people like their mushrooms really, really cooked. I like mine a tad underdone so they hold some body and some firmness to them.
Like Christmas.
Yeah, I like mine just to heat through, basically.
So do you buy these just individually, or do you get a package?
Yeah, usually they'll come different sizes. We do carry them in the grocery store. These are very large. These are really nice, actually. These are some of the largest I've seen all summer. You can do smaller ones. The only thing really I recommend with doing the smaller ones is the bigger ones are nice. They sit kind of firm. The smaller ones will kind of roll on you. So I'll just take a paring knife and flatten them off on the bottom to keep them, to keep them from rolling on you. Also, too, the small ones make great hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
So if you want an hors d'oeuvre party, you want to do a bunch of small ones, you could do that as well.
But this is more, side dish.
Right. This is more of vegetable for, these are great with pasta. You could do a chicken or veal cutlet with it, even a Parmesan. You could eat them by themselves. You could bake 2 of these and throw them over a bowl of spaghetti or a bowl of Alfredo. They're great that way too.
Okay, yeah. Oops. Now I missed, are these portobellos or are they buttons?
These are PA buttons. These are Pennsylvania button mushrooms.
You
can use shiitakes, you can use portobellos, you can use, as long as the mushroom can hold it, you can use basically whatever kind you want.
All right. This looks great.
We like to stick with the buttons because they make nice cups presentation-wise.
Yeah, they do. Making a mess a little.
That's all right.
All right.
And then, like I said, in the 350, 375, depending on your oven, 10 to 12 minutes, and we'll serve them later with some pesto sauce.
All right. And last but not least, we've got a roasted cauliflower and a jalapeno au gratin, which sounds great for those first chilly fall days that we're going to have here soon. All right, Chef, do you want to walk us through the
Sure.
au gratin?
Yeah, what we're gonna do is we went ahead and took a little shortcut here. Basically just cut some florets of cauliflower, basically one head for this recipe, smaller head, real big, you probably need maybe about a half a head. We toss it with a little bit of olive oil. We slice some jalapenos down, thicker or thinner depending on how you like it, as many or as little as you want depending on heat. We like ours a little warmer around here. So for this recipe, I believe we were putting in somewhere around 2 smaller jalapenos. Then we also threw in a little bit of onion. We toss that in the olive oil. We pre-roast it off in the oven, 350 degrees, about 8 to 10 minutes. Just brings out some of the flavor of the cauliflower, kind of mends them all together, and does put nice color on it. The thing about the cauliflower is it's naturally white vegetable in color. So if you bake it just with the cream without roasting it, it's kind of just like white. It's not very, eye good looking wise as far as presentation. So we do roast ours off to get it kind of caramelized and put some nice color on it.
Yeah, nice golden color
Right.
there.
So we did take that shortcut there. And then in here we have some heavy cream that we reduced. Again, if you pre-reduce the cream, it cuts down on your baking time.
Okay.
If you would put the cream in there raw, it's fine. But what I tend to have found is putting the cream in there raw and starting it from a cold state. By the time the cream does reduce and get real nice and thick, the cauliflower's overcooked. So we go ahead and reduce the cream by half. I think this recipe called for a quart of heavy cream reduced by half. So
Okay.
basically you would want 2 cups after, you want to simmer it down until you have 2 cups left.
So you just put it on the stove,
Put it on the stove and
low
let it
heat?
simmer. Low heat, yep.
'Cause you can
Keep an eye
swallow
on
it,
it
right?
because heavy cream will boil over on you.
Yeah,
So
right.
if you got it on really low heat, just remember to put it in a big enough pot where it won't boil over. Low enough heat, take about, I'd say 20, 25 minutes to reduce.
Okay.
So after we do that, we just kind of pour that in. And you don't want it soupy. Again, some of it's going to cook off in the oven. So we just kind of want to get it, I'd say, about halfway up. And then we're going to take some of our cheddar cheese. You can use whatever cheese you want. Sometimes we'll throw some Monterey in with it, some Colby Jack. Today we're just going to use some straight cheddar. And again, too, as much or as little as you want. If you have kids, I'm sure they're going to want more cheese than less. So you want to put a good amount on there. Again, we have some panko crumbs. This is where you get your au gratin from.
Okay.
Nice crunchy top to it. We will start to bake this covered. It'll hold in the steam. It'll help that cream get nice, thick, and bubbly, keeping that heat in there. But we will finish it without covered for about 5 minutes. A little bit of Parmesan. The oil in the Parmesan will help crust up those crumbs as well. And then I like particularly a little bit of cornflake crumbs. These are available in the store. If you have an old box in the cabinet, you could just crush them up by hand. They work as well too. Again, very simple.
Yeah, that was pretty easy.
A little bit of salt, pepper on top. I do salt the vegetables when I roast them. But you will need a little bit extra for the cream. The cream will absorb a lot of salt. So if you want to, really bring out that flavor, it will take a little bit of salt. So we'll just wrap this again into an oven, 350 to 400, depending on your oven. Covered, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes. Then we'll uncover it for about 5 just to brown up the top, make it nice and crunchy.
Okay, well, those were 3 very simple looking, very delicious looking dishes. And all of those recipes will be available at heraldstandard.com and in our food section of the paper. All right, Chef, any final words before we close this off?
Again, I just want to reiterate with the recipes. Don't be hesitant to swap out some items for the recipes. If you don't want to use this fruit or that fruit, go ahead and substitute them. All the recipes work really good with different vegetables. If you want to substitute broccoli for the cauliflower, that's fine too. Just remember to keep in mind cooking times and stuff like that. Broccoli cooks a little bit faster than cauliflower, so you just want to adjust for those items. And they go great with whatever you're having for dinner.
All right, so feel free to get creative with it.